Hi, Carlsbad Cares. Our meeting tonight ran a little bit too long to be able to send the whole video, so I wanted to do a recap just to help those who couldn't join us tonight get caught up on the information that I was providing. So, for starters, my name is Aaron, and I have been in nonprofit organization for quite some time. I started with the Old West Youth Organization, serving on their board and helping to establish SETS Foundation. The nonprofit itself taught kids how to do stunt work, acting, all of the intricacies of the film industry. In my part, what I did was I came on as the executive director for the board and the chairman of the board. And I took the nonprofit and set up several funding programs, which helped them to raise $10,000 in order to build the sets, which would be the backdrop for the kids to do their shows on. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get enough momentum with the local city government, and the kids never got a place to store those sets in order to put on their shows for the public. And later in Colorado, I joined A Year's Feast. It's a veteran and homeless family services. And so primary focus was on providing relief for those who were on the streets who were truly in need. The reason why they decided that they wanted to focus specifically on families and veterans is because families, number one, no child should ever have to sleep on the streets. But number two, with veterans, no veteran should ever sleep on the streets either. Under A Year's Feast, we helped out several other nonprofits that were also working with the homeless community, on top of doing many different blanket drives with the local banks, hygiene drives with local restaurants. So I'm very well familiar with the fundraising process. What I didn't know was how intricate the grant seeking process really is, even once you've got your nonprofit designation from the IRS. It's a lot more complicated than just writing up a proposal, sending it off to a grant funder, and expecting that your program is going to be funded. And so that's what this consultation today is. I wanted to make sure that everyone knows the documentation that we need to do moving forward and everything that needs to be prepared before we even start searching for that first grant to fund the program. Have you ever heard the old adage, proper preparation prevents poor performance? It's so true. And in grant writing, it is probably the foundation of the process, preparing so that you can get all of the documentation together in order to be ready to talk to these grant funders. So, why do we prepare? Well, number one, if you've got all your eggs in the basket, you're ready to make an omelet. You know, we're also going to be saving a lot of time in the future when we reach out to other grant funders because we'll already have this information in its database readily accessible. This also helps you if anything were to happen where you needed to switch to another grant funder, grant writer, or if you yourself was ever inspired to start writing their proposals. Now you have a great foundation to work with in order to create the narratives yourself. We also want to build the credibility with the grant funders. So, a big part of seeking grant funding is making sure that you can show the grant funder that you already know how to use the money appropriately and how to set up these programs that you're asking for funding for in an appropriate way, document your processes, follow your budget, and then report it. Most importantly, report it. A lot of nonprofits seek grant funding and they don't realize that a large part of receiving those funds means that you have to report adequately. And failure to meet certain deadlines, failure to report on items, can cost you the entire grant and even cause you to have to repay any of the grant money that you've already spent. So preparation is paramount in this industry. So now we're going to talk about the documents and the information that we need to gather in order to be ready to start seeking grant funds. So the first phase is to establish our core foundation. What this is making sure that we have all of our major organizing documents together. As we spoke about in the meeting, it's been established that you are a 501c3 public charity, which is wonderful. That's going to open up a lot more avenues for funding than if you were a private foundation. So wonderful that you've already received your IRS designation letter. That is like a license to print money, so to speak, in the nonprofit world, at least a license to print money in the direction of your nonprofit purpose. And this is something to always keep in mind is everything that you do moving forward needs to be focused on your nonprofit purpose and focused on staying within the guidelines of a public charity. So that means 2/3 of your funding needs to become distributed from the local public. No large funders unless it's a special grant. Stay operating within your 20%, so that 80% of what you bring in goes directly towards your nonprofit purpose. These are all things that grant funders are going to be looking for. They want to make sure that you're not cutting corners on these things, and because they're only going to want to fund reputable nonprofits. And so you need to show them that you are one of those. So starting with the determination letter, you want to make sure that you have somewhere on your website, or preferably on your website, where you can display this. This shows the actual status that you have and shows that you're legitimate. Your governance, it looks to me like on your website you have all of your board of directors, but if not, you definitely want to update that. Make sure that anyone that serves as a director on your board is somewhere on your website showing that they serve. That way, when your grant funders are looking for who is serving, who's voting, who's making decisions, they can see that. Any omissions on that is going to look like you have a shadow partner. We obviously want to be open and clear about everything that we're doing from this point on. Now, as far as your mission statement and your vision, these are things that do need to be built. It's good that you already have a mission statement. Before you start the grant seeking process, you need to sit down as a board and decide, is this the mission statement we want to move forward with? And if you're ready to revamp it or make it to just be a little bit more, now would be the time. Now, we can always revamp it again a little bit later, perk it up, as long as the mission statement is still geared toward your original nonprofit purpose that you told the IRS that you were opening up for. But I highly recommend that you come to a consensus on something now, because we want to add that into everything that we're doing along the process, all of your advertising, any of the proposals we put forth. And so we do want consistency with those things. Your mission statement, your vision needs to be consistent. You want to set up a good 3, 5, and 10-year plan. Always good to have a really good long outreach, because that shows that you have true long-term goals. Your strategic plan really should start with your basics. In the next phase, it's getting your financial house in order. That's really, really big. A lot of these grant funders are going to just look the other way if you don't have that house in order. And they know what they're looking for. They know what the cost of things is. You're not pulling the wool over anyone's eyes. These people have really great research software. A lot of federal grants are peer reviewed by multiple professional grant writers. They're already used to doing this kind of research. So you want to make sure that you've dot all your I's, you've crossed all your T's when it comes to your financial house. How can we do that? Well, starting with a budget. Every year, when you sit as a board, you should develop a budget. What is it that we're looking to bring in? How much are we looking to spend? What can we allocate for what things? Even if it's really simple in the beginning, just guesstimating, it's important to at least have it on paper so you have clear goals from the start. Next, at the end of the year and for the next 3 years, you want to be reporting your 990 on time every time, and be detailed. Fill out your schedule O. Try to make sure that you're putting all of your donors in. Number one, because that shows that you're getting a wide variety of donations from the community, but number two, it shows transparency, which is super important. All of your financial statements, if you get them all together in one place, it's going to be a lot easier to fill out the budget sections and the financial sections on your grant proposals each year that we put them out. Your budgeting system itself, just a small narrative of how you're tracking your budgeting. Hey, we use QuickBooks, or Regina takes care of it and she uses this software, or she keeps it in a folder. However you want to do it, just establishing how you're doing it so that you as a board have recognized it will go a long way in the future. And as far as your sustainability, understand that no grant writer wants to be your only funder. They want to see that you're going to be able to stand on your feet once they funded your program. So you start small and work with your community first. Set up your small funding programs, and those will go a long way to showing your grant funders that you can afford to continue doing this for years. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end of this about different funding ideas that you can do right now that will help not only get money in your coffer so you can help more animals, but also give you a basis to start reporting and creating those programs. And then once we're ready with all of that documentation, we'll move into phase 3. Now, phase 3, that's the fun part. We're going to gather testimonials and stories of the people who have adopted from you, stories from those who have fostered animals and cared for your animals as volunteers. We're going to gather stories from each of you as well and put it all together in order to create this magnificent tale that we're going to tell to your grant funder to show them why you are the best possible candidate for the funds that they're going to release and why your program is going to make the greatest possible impact on the community. Once all that data is compiled, we're going to start into phase 4. And this is developing your grant seeking system. Once we get to this phase, you're not going to be looking for just one grant. You're going to be wanting to get in and get as many programs funded as possible. So we need to establish a clear system in order to write each individual grant. It's not a copy paste system. You're not going to write just one proposal and that's going to fit every grant that you're seeking. Every single funder has specific things they're looking for, reasons they want to fund, and they have narratives that are the most successful. This is where a good grant writer comes in. Is I do the research to make sure that before we send off the proposal, it aligns with exactly what the grant funder is looking for. So, what does the grant seeking system look like? Well, for starters, we're going to designate a lead. You're going to set up one of your board of directors, and they're going to be in charge of your grant process. The next step is you're going to purchase a grant tracking system for your organization. Grant tracking software is amazing these days. It's so good at keeping track of all of the very important deadlines in the grant process. It lets you know when grants are open for receiving proposals, when the deadlines are, and when they close. It also lets you know when next year is going to be available. So if you don't get the grant the first time that you write it, you know exactly how much time you have to rewrite another grant. The biggest thing is creating a standardized language and library. So at this point, your mission statement, your vision, your goals, your organizational plan, you really want to have that established and set in stone. This way, everything that you create in order to send off to your grant funders has the same flow, the same sound, and the same feeling. So even with your organizational plan and your mission statement, you want to go through them and make sure that they blend, that they cohere to each other. And your proofreading protocol is super important. Just one person working on your narratives is a recipe for disaster. In all federal grants, there are at least 2 to 3 peer reviewers, and you as a nonprofit should be operating the same way. Even I operate this way. When I write something up, I have at least 2 to 3 other people review it and send it off online to some of my peers in the grant writing industry so that they can review it, because it takes many sets of eyes to catch errors or to see how we can word things a little bit better. And so, as an organization, if you start right now with that mindset, you will go far. Finally, after you've set up your grant system, you've got all of your ducks in a line, we're ready to go swimming. So the grant application flow is pretty standard. We start to research and identify what funders are going to work best for you. We vet each funder to make sure that they are looking for your specific programs and there's nothing within your program that would exclude you from their grant funding. We also start building relationships with the funders. and relationships with your local governance, your local mayor, your city councilors, your legislators. Those are wonderful relationships to establish now, because when you do go to start seeking grant funds, their testimonial of you will go a long way. And when you start to implement larger programs, like specifically seeking to get a good running facility, you're going to want those people on your side, because they're going to pull out all of the road stops for you if they like you. But if they don't like you, they're going to put all the road stops they can in your place. So one of the things I told Kitty about was, and Regina, was that when I was with A Year's Feast, we helped an organization called Menda. Now, Menda wanted to help disabled veterans in Colorado Springs. They had managed to work a deal with the United States Air Force that a portion of land that belonged to the Air Force Academy up in Monument would get set aside for a small, tiny home village for disabled veterans. And they called it Fort Hope. So they came to us. They didn't know how to set up architect plans. So they came to us, two of our board members, myself and Colt Browning. We were very knowledgeable. And so we actually designed their tiny homes so that they were completely ADA accessible. Well, anyway, long story short, the woman that ran Menda also had a really bad reputation in the community. She had spoiled her reputation with many of the city council members. Her relationship with the mayor was very stressed because she's always being volatile towards him. So when it came time for the city to make a decision whether they would allow the Air Force to annex this small part of the property, they said no. And this is where relationship building is so important, because you can establish everything, dot all your I's, cross all your T's, have everything in order. But if you have spoiled the wrong relationships or haven't established the right relationships, you can be brought to a screeching halt very easily. Next, we'll get into the proposal writing stage. This is where I'm going to take everything together and we're going to actually start writing each section of the proposal. It really varies by your grant funder. Some federal grants can be 80 to 100 pages. So it's really tailored to exactly what they're looking for and what's going to maximize your success rate. Then we'll submit it. Your grant seeking software or grant tracking software is going to help us to track the submission. And then lastly is follow up and reporting. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of nonprofits don't realize that when you receive grant funds, there's a lot of reporting that comes with that too. And you have to meet those deadlines. And so that's something that I can help you with to make sure that we're letting your grant funder know everything that they want to know about the program that they're paying for. So that's the grant writing process in a nutshell. And the vast majority of that I can help you with, but getting all of the documentation together, that's going to be what your board members need to put together. I'm very grateful that you took the time to meet with me tonight, and I hope that I can help you in the future. I hope that I can help you be successful and that you can be another all-star on my list. In the meantime, Kitty and Regina and I talked, and there are a few funding things that I think you can start doing right now that are going to majorly help you. Number one being, I think that you need to revamp your website and start adding profiles of the animals that you're helping with donation buttons. And it can be as simple as a few pictures of the animal, their name, a little bit of a story, and hey, can you donate to help feed them or donate to help with their medical bills? If you want to go even further, one of the best things to do is take videos of them playing and do a lot of cinematography with them, because this is going to tug at people's heartstrings even more. There's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to adopt, but anyone in the world can donate to you. So if you put up a viral video and 100,000 people see it and 20,000 of them decide they want to donate $1, you just made a $20,000 video. It's really simple, but it's time consuming. And so I strongly urge that you try that out. I think it would be a great addition. And then we also talked about going to local grocery stores and restaurants and getting on their rounded up system. A lot of them have a button already, round up to the next dollar, donate to a local charity. If you get on that system, there's hundreds of dollars a day in donations that can be coming in as well to help support your program that you have right now. With that money coming in, now you're funding the programs that you've got going on. You're setting up your documentation. So you're showing that from day one, you hit the ground running. Grant funders are going to love that. So there are a lot of other ideas that you can do in order to get your funding from the public. And I'd love to help you with more of that. So when you're ready with the documentation that you need to get to phase 3, let's sit down again and strategize on how we can get you moving a little bit faster. So, in closing, thank you again for meeting with me, and I hope you all have a wonderful week.